Steve, welcome and thanks for doing this. And huge congratulations on the MBE.
Yeah, no, that was a turn up for the books. That actually,
Bit of a shock.
yeah, it was a shock. My wife there, she thought it was a. I do get the occasional point. She thought it was a driving penalty when she opened it up. So she was relieved. Yeah,
It literally just landed with the gas bill, did it?
it did just before Christmas, and I had no wind of it whatsoever. So to get an MBE for services to swimming was really nice. Nice Christmas present.
Incredible, yeah. So, as I say, most people know you as one of Britain's greatest swimmers, but I know you as an inspirational leader, a great businessman with Total Swimming. But so, for those people who don't know, just give us a bit of an overview of what Total Swimming does.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky. I've never actually had a job being employed. I went straight from being an Olympic swimmer then to start my own business. And I'm really lucky now. We deliver swimming lessons to 30,000 kids every week all over the country. We also build swimming facilities and we train hundreds and hundreds of people every year to help deliver swimming. So we're a vertically integrated swimming business that builds, trains and provides thousands of swimming lessons every week.
So most of us think that great swimmers are born with water wings and just are straight in it from the minute they can walk. Yours was slightly different, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was dead lucky as a kid. You know, parents taking me round. I didn't realise at the time, but parents had me into absolutely everything: football, cricket, rugby, swimming. I was even in a church choir. I know I don't look like much of a chorister, but I was in a church choir as well. And I'm extremely grateful to my parents for the time and effort they put into me as a kid. I was doing a couple of swimming activities with me folks when I was young. But actually, I had a really nasty scare when I was 8 years of age. I fell into the water in the Thames. We were on a holiday on a barge down in the Thames. We were dead tight, my parents. We never went abroad. It was all caravan holidays, but this was a special holiday on a barge down in London. And long story short, last day, brothers chasing me around the barge and I fell in. And I was holding on to the side of the barge for dear life. And we laughed about it for years afterwards. But I now realise as a parent, that scared the living daylights out of my mum and dad, and they got me into a swimming club. I was doing swimming lessons the next week at Walton Swimming Baths in Liverpool. And 20 years after that, I won an Olympic medal in swimming. But what I didn't realise at the time, that event, and reflecting, I kind of sowed a seed that I want every child to be able to swim, you know. And it's nice to be involved in a business that you're passionate about, you know. I think a lot of people make the assumption that I'm involved in this particular business because I was an Olympic swimmer. That's not the case at all. I'm involved in this particular business that I do now because of that experience when I was 8 years of age.
Yeah. So, born in the late 70s in Liverpool, obviously.
Easy, you know, I was trying to get the face cream on here and giving the game away.
But early 80s swimming facilities in Liverpool, what were they like for somebody who with you know, the huge talent that you did at that time?
You know, I've got these vivid memories of going down to Garston Baths and Walton Baths in Liverpool. And, you know, it seems ridiculous. I call them baths now because that's what they were called then. These swimming pools where they had a 25-yard pool built in the Victorian days for, I guess, your first class, your upper class experience. And then they had this horrendous 15-yard pool, which was just like a dip for everybody else. This was how these pools were designed 120 years ago. And anyway, I remember learning to swim there. And it was great. You know, the packet of Chris afterwards, the salt and vinegar and all the rest of it, the horrendous chlorine. And the experience wasn't that good, but I really enjoyed it, you know. But the facilities, they're a huge issue. They were an issue then in the 80s, but they're an even bigger issue now in terms of swimming facilities around the country.
Yeah. So when did you realise that actually, you're an all-round sportsman, but when did you realise actually, I'm good at this and I need to focus on it?
Do you know, and again, grateful for my parents. It's funny in life, isn't it? It's about opportunity. And I was winning straight off the bat because my parents were prepared to give up a vast amount of their time for their kids, my brother Dave as well, to have opportunities to do stuff. But then I was secondly very lucky that there was people that took an interest in me and spotted something in me, like Mr. Rees, my PE teacher, and then Diane Jameson, a coach in Liverpool. And I think everything in life is about that. It's about opportunity and timing. And I never would have realised that I was a good swimmer if those people hadn't have been there for me. But it was when I'm winning all the races at like 14, 15, you know, and people are going, well, he's winning by quite a bit, and you're the best in Liverpool, then you're best in the North West, and then you go on to the England stuff. But I struggled with being committed to just the one thing. I was still doing all the other sports, and it wasn't until I was 16 when I just focused on swimming, and the following year I won the Junior European Championships. I vividly remember going, I could go to the Olympics here. And that was the time that I did it.
And how do you learn to deal with the successes and failures that you're a teenager, and how do you get used to the wins and the losses at that age, at such a young age?
Do you know, this is something that I try to instill into my kids. I've got 4 of them. Keeps me busy outside the work. But I think it's about resilience. A lot of people, I think, with social media and what's drilled into our kids these days is it's about winning in life and everything has to be perfect and all the rest of it. I don't think they're the true lessons, the wins. The losses, for me, are the really important lessons, and it's about resilience and your response to those losses that really, I think, make you a champion or the best version of yourself. And I am genuinely worried that we aren't as resilient as we could be. We need to be more resilient, or we need more resilience in our society. So
at 18, you move over to Florida State University.
Yeah.
Was that mainly about the facilities, or what was the driver for that?
It took me about 3.2 seconds to decide to move to America. So I mentioned to you that I won the Junior European Championships, right? So I was getting phone calls from all of the universities in America. Didn't know much about it, but they clearly scouted me and said, and the American system is great. You go and study, but also you get a scholarship to do your sport. Now, American football, baseball, basketball, swimming, they cover all the sports. And I was offered a full scholarship. And in the 90s, that was worth about $25,000 a year. They pay for your food, your education, accommodation, insurance, everything. And what a package, right? A young lad in Liverpool training with 2 or 3 other people on a daily basis to be asked to go over to America, get that fabulous bursary scheme, and then at the same time train with some of the best swimmers from around the world. We had South Africans, we had Malaysians, we had Australians, Americans, all coming together, 60 of us training on a daily basis at Florida State University. I went over for the recruitment trip and I was like, well, that's me, that is. Outdoor pool, Florida, 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools on the same campus. It was just brilliant.
But you went and did marketing and finance, though, as part of that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you always have one eye on life after swimming, or was that just a...
It's funny, and again, it's the decisions and the opportunities you get in life, sliding doors, isn't it? Because I did physics, chemistry, biology A-level in Liverpool. And then I go to America and I sit down with one of the careers people and they're going to me, you think you're a scientist? Like... in their American accents, he said, have you not thought about doing business? I think you'd be more suited to business and stuff. And I'm really grateful to Matt Schmock as well for saying, why don't you try these things? So I completely changed from going over there to do a science degree to within 2 weeks switching to wanting to do business and specialising in marketing and finance, because I always did want to do something in relation to business. I realised very, very quickly, because it's similar to sport. In sport, you're totally responsible for building a team around you, being clear about outcomes in terms of a vision, etc. Being able to take failure, and I was very focused on doing that from a very early age.
But the transition from Liverpool to Florida, did you see a massive uplift in the facilities that you were seeing? And did that really impact on your future career when you came to Total Swimming?
It was night and day. It's like going from a Mini to a Ferrari. I mean, the Americans have got it right in terms of the facilities that they had in place. It's an unfair comparison to go Westminster Road in Liverpool, 33-metre pool, to Florida State University with 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools, 1 outdoor, 2 indoor. And I didn't realise at the time, I was in very elite performance mindset in that case, and I was focused on trying to get to the Olympics, win medals at Europeans and Commonwealth Games. But I think there probably was a seed planted subconsciously that our facilities probably needed to be a little bit better. 2000,
things start to get a bit more serious.
Yep.
You set a Commonwealth record in the US Nationals.
Yep.
You qualified for Sydney. Am I right that you beat a young Michael Phelps as well?
Yeah, although that's a little bit of an unfair comparison. I think at that meet that you're referring to, Michael Phelps might have been 15 years of age. So it's a nice win in the box. I mean, I'm just going to rewind a little bit. 1996 was, you could argue, I was 19 at the time. I should have easily gone to the Olympics, right? But I made some bad life decisions in the run-up to that event in 96, and I didn't actually qualify for the Olympic Games. I did a time 3 months later at the British Nationals, and the British Nationals were on at the same time the Olympic Games was on. I did a time in this horrendous pool in Leeds that would have had me in the Olympic final. And that was a big wake-up moment for me in terms of sometimes you've got to be serious in life and sometimes it's all right to play. I was probably doing too much playing my first year in America, and that taught me a big lesson about getting about the opportunity that I've got and treating it with what it deserves.
So just give us a feel for the level of work and commitment that you had to put in at that stage to get to that level.
Well, that was an interesting point in 96. I was messing around, come back in 97, and I was going to the coach saying, I don't think I'm doing enough work, and I'd like you to put on extra sessions, and I'd like to do a little bit more in the gym, and perhaps we'll running complement what we're doing. And anyway, they did that for me. They accommodated that. And 97 was a brilliant season for me. You know, I won a medal at the European Championships. I was doing times that would put me in the top 5 in the world. And that was when I really got serious around the sport. I was 20 years of age at that point. And then, you know, went there in 2000, didn't perform as I wanted to at the Olympics. And then eventually did it in 2004. But it's interesting because as I'm sitting here reflecting on with you, it's all right to say, yeah, you're an Olympic medalist. But actually, I've probably had 20 failures prior to that one success. And I think business is like that as well. You know, it's not just the glory of, oh, great, here you are. It takes years of time and effort to get you in a position to be where you want to be.
Yeah. So, 2004,
yeah,
you not only captain the GB swimming team, but you go and win a bronze medal.
Yeah. Which,
to put in context, was the first British Olympic swimming medal in over 8 years, wasn't it?
I never knew you were so into your swimming, Paul. I mean, this is quite remarkable, this. Yeah, it was. You know, we're very lucky now in Britain because of the UK sport funding, because there's taxpayer money that goes into elite sport, we dominate. I mean, we are pound for pound the best Olympic sporting nation on the planet. No doubt about it. You know, we finished in the top 3 for the last 4 or 5 Olympics. It hasn't always been like that. In fact, 96 was the complete opposite. So Steve Redgrave with his 1 gold medal, I think we were 32nd on the medal table. It was embarrassing. It was a national embarrassment. And this is what I mean, it's taken 20 years for us to transition from being a national embarrassment at the Olympics, being 31st on the medal table behind Slovakia and New Zealand and all the rest of it. I mean, New Zealand got more sheep than people, and they're ahead of us on the Olympic medal table. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, it's taken a long time to get there. So I was around in 96 and 2000 and 2004, and that was where we were transitioning into being all right. But I came off the back of Sydney in 2000, where the British swim team got no medals. We were a laughingstock. You can't go to Olympics as a swimming team with all those medal opportunities and not get anything. And it wasn't looking so good in 2004 either. So it was relief as much as pride and joy in 2004 that I did actually get a medal.
But just take us through that day. I mean, standing on that podium, that must have been incredible.
It was, you know, it was. It's nice just to think about it and reflect on it, actually, because I don't do it that often. But we hadn't done that well. The British team hadn't done that well the first 4 or 5 days. And then I messed up the day before in a nice way, because I beat Michael Phelps. Now, he wasn't a boy at this time. He was coming into his prime, and I was probably over my prime at 27. But anyway, I ended up beating him in this semi-final. But I was in the outside lane and just scraped through to the semi-final by 4/100ths of a second. I was in the outside lane, one of the underdog lanes. Finished ahead of him and went through fastest to the final. I was a bit upset with his book, actually, Phelps, because he talked at that time, 3 people had only beaten him. There was Ian Thorpe, the big Australian guy, big feet Australian guy, and he spoke about him for about 4 pages. Then there was Peter van der Hoogenband, the Dutch guy that had beat him, he got 2 pages. And then he just gave me a little line at the end of one chapter where he went, he didn't even name me, he just said, and some Brit beat me in the semi-final and the 200 fly. But anyway, so I went through to the final, fastest qualifier, and there was a lot of pressure. You start to notice stuff, like Prime Minister turns up with his wife. You've got the BBC crew coming down to watch some of the events, and I didn't know it at the time, but Princess Anne had been put down to dish out the medals, and I'm thinking, if I mess this up, you know what I mean? You got all these eyes on you. Anyway, I didn't win, obviously, but I did get a medal, and I only actually ever thought of myself as being capable of winning Olympic bronze. I know that sounds bizarre, but one of my swimming heroes was the commentator Andy Jameson, and he won a bronze medal, and I'd only had in my mindset, I want to emulate that. And it's no surprise to me now that that's what I did do, and we shouldn't be limited by our expectations. But I'm giving you a long answer to a short question. What was the day like? The day was just full of nerves. You're hanging around all day, you're waiting to do a 2-minute swim, you're trying to stick to the process, but just keeping a lid on nervous energy. Because this is the unique thing about sport. You do not get, like most jobs, the opportunity to make a difference every day and to have 8 hours in that day to make a difference. The thing about Olympic sport is you have a 2-minute opportunity once every 4 years, and that's how your homework is marked. You either do or you don't. And I think that's what makes the Olympics an amazing spectacle. But yeah, the day was full of nerves.
So you return from Athens, and after 10 years of competitive sport, you decide enough's enough. Did you have a plan at that point, or was you just had enough of competitive sport?
You're getting a bit of an insight now into my mentality. I knew at 27 years of age that an Olympic bronze medal was the best thing I could do. Now, I don't think they do it now, but you go for a drugs test. Everyone is automatically put in for a drugs test if they get a medal at the Olympics. And as I say, I don't think they do it now, but they had beers in the drugs testing room. Now, it was a dry camp. You can't drink on the British Olympic swimming team, but I was like, sack that. I'm having a couple of these beers. So I'm sitting there waiting to go out to do my drugs test, having a beer, thinking, that's it for me. I was so emphatic that I would never get back in the pool again, because I'd done the thing that I always wanted to do. I didn't feel like I'd had Commonwealth medals, European medals, and I didn't have that Olympic medal, and sitting there with this beer waiting to do the drugs test, I was like, that's swimming done for me. And to answer your question, I had zero clue what I was going to do. I knew I was going to work for myself, and I knew I was going to do my thing, but I didn't know what it was. Right.
So you and fellow Olympic swimmer Adrian Turner then founded Total Swimming. How did it come about then on the back of that, and what was the driver at that time?
Well, it's fascinating, it's Adi and I were both studying while we were swimming. We weren't just so narrowly focused on swimming. We wanted to do other stuff. So I've always studied or done a bit of part-time work whilst swimming, just to understand things. And we used to sit there of an evening having a tea, and rather than having the telly on, we'd have this little brain bowl around businesses. Yeah, so every night we'd come up with a business idea and we'd stick it in by the fireplace, thinking, what are we going to do when we're done and all the rest of it? I mean, there was some crazy stuff. I remember Adi coming up with an idea of refilling car petrol tanks through the night. While people are sleeping, they go round and fill their cars up with petrol. And we came up with the craziest ideas. But you never go too far from home, do you? And we were really passionate, both of us, around kids wanting to swim, and it was an easy place to start. And we literally had a conversation. He said, I'm off to Italy, but I'll put some money into a business. And we decided on the landing how much money we were going to put in. It was 10 grand. and I would set about starting a business. But it wasn't what it is now. We were a retail business, and we were building pools for kids in poor communities. That was where we started. Usually corporate social responsibility comes once a business is successful. We started back to front. Yeah. We went, we'll start with the bits that we're really passionate about. And it probably slowed us down, but it taught us a lot.
Right. So the transition from elite athlete to corporate life, that can't have been easy. I mean, what were the ups and downs for you there?
You know, when you say elite athlete, I want to pull my belly in and sit up a little bit. It feels like a long way away now. What was the transition like? Very slow. I was fortunate as an Olympic medalist that I was being asked to do all sorts of corporate stuff, and that was help. I didn't realise at the time, but that was providing the seed funding for the business. You know, I wasn't drawing a lot of money out the business at the time, so I had these opportunities. But what it also did was take focus away. And you can never achieve something unless you are, you know, focused on it, giving it the intensity that it deserves. So the transition was a slow one. Between 2005 and 2010, it did take a little bit of time. I think I had one person working with me, one person in the team, salaried for probably the first 3 years. And I always like looking back, because I think last month, where we had one person for the first 2 or 3 years, last month I think we just hired 30. You know, so it's the momentum is really, really interesting on that point. But business is very, very similar to sport. You know, sport's quite lonely, that it's all on you, and you're the one that has to come up with the vision. You're the one that has to make the plan. There's loads of failures that come along the way as well. So I was quite used to that. I was quite used to that process, really. But similarly to swimming, I only realised 6-7 years later, after starting the business, that I might actually be successful in that field. It really did take a long time. Yeah.
So do you think that's really helped you, that history of swimming and the amount of work that you put in, that's made you a better leader?
It's a really interesting one around leadership. I think you either have the ability to convey a vision to people and to be empathetic enough to understand where they're at with it, or you don't. And I think probably of all the business stuff of all the business traits that are important, that's one of the highest ones. And I think I'm quite lucky that I've always been able to communicate with people. And also the people that I've had in have been utterly brilliant. I've believed in what we're trying to do, and have the attitude, and then they've been prepared to train for skill. So definitely benefited from that.
I mean, we've talked about some real successes that you've had along the way, but you know, it's not been plain sailing all the way, has it? Both from a professional and personal. You know, you don't mind me mentioning in 2009 you were diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. I mean, how do you deal with those ups and downs on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the cancer one first. That was absolutely horrendous, not for me, but for people around me. So there's a bit of a story here that my wife's sister Maxine, she got married in 2005, and 4 months later she actually died of cancer. I mean, it was horrendous. Me and my wife Thea, we got married in 2009, and of course we're fresh with that thought of Maxine, that being so traumatic, that experience. She was only 32. Anyway, come back from honeymoon. And I went to the doctors, and they quite bluntly said, after doing a scan, you've got a tumour, it's cancerous. So knowing about testicular cancer now, 96% of people survive testicular cancer. It's one with a high survival rate. So I guess if I was going to get one, that's a good one to get. But it's the context that was an issue, because having that experience with Maxine, my wife's then thinking, I've lost my sister, I'm going to lose my husband. So from that sense, it was quite traumatic trying to deal with all that. Plus, it was the first time in my life I realised that I wasn't invincible. Yeah. It's funny as you go through life, isn't it? Absolutely. But you magnify that when you're a sports person, because every 18-year-old thinks they're invincible. correct. Most people in their 20s do. But when you're in a sporting environment, physically you definitely feel like you're invincible. And that was the first time I realised to myself, do you know what? There are risks here in life that you've got to manage. I mean, to the point I don't mind sharing with you, I'm probably oversharing, but simple stuff in life, like taking out insurance, critical illness insurance and all of that. I had a few houses at the time, and to save 15 quid a month, I didn't take critical illness insurance. Now, if the outcome had been worse than what it was, I would have left my wife with the burden of paying for all of that stuff. So I remember that life is quite fragile at that point. But to answer your question, I dealt with it in a way how I learned to deal with it through swimming. Understand where you're trying to get to with a goal. Get a like-minded team around you that can help you solve the issue. Be positive in your mindset, and I think that's the most important thing in terms of getting stuff done. And so it was really simple, and I kind of compartmentalised it in that thing. But I think the best thing I ever heard in swimming, in sport, in business, and in life is your reaction to an event dictates the outcome. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but something bad can happen in your life, and the way you respond to it will dictate the outcome. So just because a bad event happens, if you react negatively, the outcome's going to be worse. Something bad happens in your life and you react positively, it's going to turn out better. And I just think that mindset thing's so important. Just reflecting on being a leader, just going back to that, I think you have to be positive, not in a stupid sort of way. Life's not
It's not Disney.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's not Disney, but there's no reason to walk in at 9 o'clock in any morning and just be peed off for the sake of it. I don't understand leaders that keep people on their toes by being moody. I don't get that. I think that's a bit 1980s, maybe 1990s. But I've gone off on one there with a massive answer for a short question.
Oh, brilliant. So, back to the present day,
Yep.
Total Swimming Group, incredible businesses, as you say, fully integrated, doing a lot of great stuff in the community as well. But what are you most proud of that business?
I mean, it is great. We're building private members learn to swim centres focused on young children. And we're putting one up at a rate of about one every 3 months at the moment, and it's my aspiration that we get to one a month and then hopefully beyond that, because I think the country needs it. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is we used to take a temporary swimming pool, a couple of them, and we used to go to the poorest communities around the country where kids couldn't swim, often multicultural environments in order to do it. And we'd build that pool while the kids were on holiday. So they'd leave for Easter or they'd leave for half term. The team would go in, and I say team because I'm not very good with spanners, but the team would go in and they'd build this pool, fill it full of water. It's a proper pool. I'm doing it an injustice. And the kids would walk in and we'd teach the whole school to swim for the next term. 1,000 kids. And then they'd bus in other kids from the local community and they'd learn to swim as well. And we loved it. I probably wasn't making very much money from it at all. In fact, we were making next to nothing. But it was extremely rewarding, and I'm much more proud of that, teaching 160,000 kids to swim through that method of pools for schools, than anything I've done since. I think it's had the biggest impact. We were reliant on public funding for that, and guess what? It goes away. So you've got to be able to eat what you hunt, and that was when I decided with AD and the team that actually we're going to get very commercial, and when we make enough money, we might go back to and do that when we can fund it ourselves.
And who have been your biggest influences in both your sporting and business career, and why?
I think it's important to look at everyone and take the best traits that you want from those individuals. We're all flawed, aren't we? Right. So the hero thing it wasn't really up there for me in sport. Although there were two people that stood out. Andy Jameson, who was a Merseyside lad, who's actually the BBC commentator. He got an Olympic medal in butterfly. I was a butterfly swimmer from the same area. I got his autograph. He's a good mate now, so let's hope he doesn't watch this. I'm not sure he knows that. And the other one was a fella called Edwin Moses. I don't know if you know 400 metre hurdler. He never lost a race in it was either 11 years, 11 months and 11 days, or 9 years, 9 months and 9 days. But he was just, his level of performance was utterly brilliant. So I did admire him. But I've always tried to look at people and say, what traits have they got that I would like to emulate that might make me a better version of myself? So and that happened in sport, and then in business as well. I mean, you just got to look around. There's lessons to learn from everyone. I have had a mentor for a number of years who actually was an old swimming coach, Dave Robbo, and he also owns his own business. And he's really helped me understand myself and my decision making. So there's a lot of people, really.
Incredible. And how would you like to be remembered?
Wow. It's funny, you know. Kids change it a lot, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, because I used to think when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I'd like to be known as being a fabulous swimmer and all the rest of it. And then, you know, 10 years ago, I'm thinking to myself, I'd like to be known as a good businessman that made a difference in our industry. And it sounds a bit soppy, but now I think I just want to be known primarily as being a good husband and a good dad. And I know that might sound a bit soppy, but it's really, really, really important to me. If we can then, as a business, make a difference to hundreds of thousands of kids a year through what I think is the most important activity that they can do that can save their life, I think that'd be great. But you know, you need a great group of people, and for me, it starts with my business partner Becky Adlinson, who, you know, has a really great voice in our industry, and Adi, who I started the business with in front of that fire all those years ago. I've surpassed 3 times the limit of where I thought we wanted to get to with our business, and I think the future's going to be great for us. You know, we need some partners that understand what we're trying to achieve and that'll help us get there.
Steve Parry, MBE, thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Cheers.